for a year and pay less than 71 pesos per month. Visit tmt.ph/digital to get your free 30 days of the Manila Times Digital Edition.
What comes to your mind when you think of peace? I think of a quiet paradise, and I open my eyes, because it's right here. San Vicente. Despite everything thrown its way, it's back on its feet again. All the places to explore, and all the best emotions to feel. Experience this paradise with Sunlight Air.
My life in Italy is always in a rush. The days are hectic, but I have always dreamt of a different life. Where each sunrise greets me with the warmth of paradise. Where turquoise waters and limestone cliffs are my backyard. Where fish don't swim in glass cases. I dreamt of living in a house that mixes comfort with a deep concern for the environment, of sharing my home with others, and developing warm-hearted communities. My dreams, they came true in the Philippines. Ten years ago, when my younger sister died, I realized that life is too short. So I left my life in Italy as an economist and sold my house, my car, and all my businesses. I boarded my boat and decided to sail around the world, visiting different countries every couple of months. But things changed when I arrived in the Philippines. In 2013, I needed to apply in advance for Indonesian visa. The nearest consulate on my route was in Davao, but what was supposed to be just a quick stopover turned into love at first sight. I knew I would keep coming back. I explored other Philippine islands and eventually found my new home in Coron. The island has everything I wanted for my dream retirement. Warm weather, breathtaking natural formations, diverse marine life, safe and secure environment, and gentle, welcoming people. Thanks to the special resident retires visa, I've been living in Coron for the past 4 years. It's a lifetime visa, which means I don't need to renew it. It also allows me to return to the Philippines anytime I want. No hassles, no frills. And although it wasn't in my plans, this visa also allows me to work here in Coron. We originally built this houseboat so we can have a place to stay during the rainy season. But friends and other tourists liked the idea. We decided to open it up to guests and make it a business. The houseboats are totally eco-friendly. They run on clean energy. The wastewater is kept in holding tanks. We don't discharge any waste into the sea. Twice a day, the waste is transferred to a 6-stage concrete septic tank in another island, where it's treated properly. This way, the lagoon stays pristine. Because of these eco-friendly steps, I was able to get permission to set up the houseboats in the Tagmanua's ancestral waters. I also partnered with the tribe association to provide livelihood and training to their young members.
Good morning, Kuya Paulo!
Salamat po, Kuya Jeffrey.
Living in the Philippines is a dream. Here, I found a home. Here, I found a family. I've been to 120 countries. But the Philippines is the only one that made me want to stay.
sansilanganan, alam ng puso sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, duyan ka ng magiting, sa manluluti, di ka pasisiil, sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mong buhaw. May dalagang dula ang awit sa paglayang inahal, ang islap ng wataw at lu'y tagumpay na nagniningning. Ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may di magnining. Luma ng araw ng walhati kong suta, uwi langit sa piling ko. Aming ligaya na pag may mga alis na mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Good day. Thank you for joining us on the Manila Times Online Business Forum, where today we discuss the tourism industry outlook. My name is Defort Gasaran, the Manila Times or TMT editor, and your co-moderator for today. Co-moderating with me is Peter Conrad Carino, the Manila Times business editor. Hi, Conrad.
Yes, interestingly, I would like to say that this forum is very interesting and timely because of the health crisis that happened. And the tourism industry had to undergo a lot of lockdowns, and of course came the crash of the airline industry also, figuratively speaking.
Yes, any literal crashing would definitely infinitely be worse. Yes, but even the metaphorical one has left the country, like you said, as well as the travel and tourism industry is quite crippled for a long period. And these have only recently managed to regain their legs, so to speak. And if you think about it, it's been rudderless, so to speak, and rather lost for some time, because only recently has it been able to open up to the public, particularly the international community. So the local industry for tourism begs the question, toward what direction is the road to pre-pandemic prosperity? How do we go back to, if not the way things were, somehow make things better than they were before, allowing us opportunities even to reset certain not so best practices, right? So that's why our business forum for today is titled Philippine Tourism, Where Do We Go From Here?
Yes, and I think this forum will help answer those questions. So the forum titled today is PH Tourism, Where Do We Go From Here? And yes, we will discuss a lot of critical issues here and answer some very, very sensitive questions. So let's go on and with it, Fort.
Yeah, we're very glad that to help us answer these questions, our keynote speakers are Bernadette Berna Romulo Puyat, who is of course, the Department of Tourism Secretary. We also have Jose Jojo Clemente III, Tourism Congress of the Philippines President. So Mr. Clemente will also discuss his knowledge about that. And Oscar Getuya Kasaysay, National Commission for Culture and the Arts, or NCCA Director.
Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us on this occasion, the Manila Times Online Business Forum on Tourism.
Welcome, everyone.
Welcome, everyone.
I know you all have very busy schedules and are eager to map out Philippine tourism. Where do we go from here? But before we begin, allow me to thank our business partners for making this forum possible. Our co-presenter, of course, is Hotel Sogo. Our special partners are Discovery Hospitality, Hotel 101 Manila, Philippine Retirement Authority, Winford Manila Resort and Casino, and Zumanity. Our organization partners are the British Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines, the Cebu Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the French Chamber of Commerce and Industry in the Philippines, and the Davao Chamber of Commerce and Industry, or DCCII, the Financial Executives Institute of the Philippines, or FINEX, the Italian Chamber of Commerce in the Philippines, or ICCPI, the Management Association of the Philippines, or MAP. We also have the Nordic Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines, the Philippine Center for Islam and Democracy, as well as She Talks for Peace. Of course, we do want to mention that our special partner, our media partner, is the Manila Times TV.
Okay, thank you, forum partners. Now, maybe we should dive in and introduce our first speaker to give us direction on where Philippine tourism will be going in this post-pandemic era. So let's go on with the first speaker, Fort.
Okay, Conrad, I've been informed by the Office of the Department of Tourism that Secretary Romulo Puyat is unable to join us today because of a pressing matter that came up, but that she had asked the Chief Operating Officer of the Tourism Promotions Board. I understand she's here to take the place of Ms. Puyat. And with the indulgence of our audience, of course, allow me to introduce our lady representative. A brief introduction of her background. She's an educator and leadership coach and a lawyer with extensive professional experience in public sector strategic and reform management. Now, she holds a master's degree in public management from the joint program of the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy as National University of Singapore and the Kennedy School of Government, Harvard University. She also completed her master in National Security Administration at the National Defense College of the Philippines. And she holds a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science and Bachelor of Laws at the University of the Philippines. Now, she served as Assistant Secretary for both the Department of National Defense as well as the Department of Labor and Employment. So she's also a core faculty member of the Ateneo School of Government. So her background pretty much gives her a broad preparedness to be able to help us open our tourism sector. And definitely, she's been awarded for her achievements, particularly as one of the first and only recipient of the prestigious 10 Outstanding Young Men Award for the Human Resource Development in Government Service. So, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you our first speaker, the COO of the Tourism Promotions Board, Maria Antoinette Velasco Aliotes. Welcome and thank you for making time for us. The screen is yours, Antoinette.
Thank you very much, Sir Conrad, for that generous introduction and also for the warm welcome. Although ako ay repist ngayon, representative of Sec Borna, because as you mentioned, she suddenly had to attend to an equally pressing matter. And of course, I would like to greet Conrad and the rest of those who are joining us in this wonderful discussion, plotting ahead of us what lies ahead for the tourism reset, as you mentioned, Conrad. No? So being a representative, the secretary actually prepared a speech. So that was how she was really so enthusiastic to join you today. And she conveys her gratitude to the Manila Times in particular for the invitation to speak here. And she says that the question as part of the title of the discussion, it's a very good one. And that she can answer that with an enthusiastic quote, "Nowhere to go but up," unquote. And she says that's the easy answer. The more detailed and complex answer is what she has outlined in the speech, which I will read to you, as she discusses the DOT's plans and programs to revitalize the industry. So allow me, please, and I quote, "After 2 years since the outbreak of the pandemic and 1 year since we started vaccinating the population, we have finally crossed the threshold into the new normal. Since February 10, the Philippines has been welcoming fully vaccinated international travelers. If I may add, as of April 24, we actually had 313,050 foreign visitors entering our borders. And as of the last 2 days, we have actually breached the daily average of 7,000 arrivals, hitting about 7,200 arrivals for 2 days, April 23 and 24 in particular. Our confidence to reopen our border was brought about by a number of factors, foremost of which, of course, is that we have successfully implemented stringent health and safety guidelines in our key destinations with the support, of course, of the Department of Health. Secondly, the DOT led the strict accreditation of all tourism-related facilities, ensuring that they comply with the globally and nationally mandated health and safety protocols. And most importantly, I think you have seen this and you will agree that we've had a largely successful vaccination campaign. As of April 18, 2022, close to 70 million Filipinos have been fully vaccinated. And in terms of tourism workers, we have vaccinated at least 97% of our targeted tourism workers. In key destinations, 100% of our frontliners in the tourism sector are also fully vaxxed. These destinations include Baguio City, Aurora, Busuanga, Coron, El Nido, Puerto Princesa, all in Palawan, even San Vicente. And in Cebu, Mandaue City, and in Mindanao, we've also reached that full vaccination rate in Camiguin. While we are waiting for the resumption of international tourism, we launched several promotional campaigns to ensure that we kept the Philippines as the top of mind destinations in our different markets. Our award-winning video campaigns from Wake Up in the Philippines in 2020, and then towards the end of the year, we had Have a Safe Trip Pinas. And then now recently, we launched the It's More Fun With You, have been lauded, not just for their use of creative storytelling, but also our modern takes on original Filipino music and stunning imagery of our various destinations. Of course, Balikbayans have always been a big part of the tourism industry. And so for them, we launched the Balikan ang Pilipinas campaign and the Balikan.ph aggregator website. Balikan.ph is a one-stop shop platform that features different tour packages, hotel and resort promotions, and flight deals targeted to our returning kababayans. Indeed, since the reopening of our borders, actually, yung sinabi kong number kanina, more than half of that are accounted for by our Filipino kababayans or balikbayans. In our effort to develop smart tourism, the DOT has also experimented with digital platforms to expand our reach and create different ways of experiencing Philippine tourism. We launched virtual destination videos and 360-degree virtual reality experiential tours, highlighting the country's top tourist spots and attractions. These marketing campaigns are just part of the DOT's 3 strategic directions that form the framework of the reformulated National Tourism Development Plan spanning 2021-2022, which was really post-pandemic, not in the immediate. And we have adjusted that to cope with the calls of the times. The call of the times, or maybe the emerging new challenges of the times. The revised National Tourism Development Plan leverages the comparative advantages of the country in order to recover livelihoods, deepen the roots for a resilient and sustainable recovery, and lay the foundations for devolved tourism functions starting this year. The first of these strategic directions is to promote safe, fun, and competitive tourism. The DOT, as I mentioned, has validated more than 115 tourism circuits. These are redeveloped, recalibrated products across the country. And they're also currently developing more circuits to introduce the best travel products and experiences which our regions have to offer. Some of these circuits have already been launched, including the bike trails of Bicol and Central Visayas, Camiguin and Misamis Oriental's Green Adventure Loop. There's also Davao's Dive Tourism, Boracay's Food Crawl, Soxurgen's Farm Tours, and the Interregional Cuisine and Culture of Ilocos, Central Luzon, and the Cordillera. The DOT also implemented guidelines that ensure tourism stakeholders comply with the protocols and precautionary measures set by the World Health Organization and our very own Department of Health. We have been awarded also the use of the Safe Travel Stamp from the World Travel and Tourism Council as early as September 2020. And as I speak now, 257 accommodation establishments across the country have been given the authority to use the Safe Travel Stamps. And there are also 3 destinations that include Baguio City, Boracay Island, and the province of Ilocos Norte as recipients of the grant of the use of the Safe Travel Stamps. The second strategic direction of DOT, focusing on strengthening governance and tourism destination management, aims to support the devolution of tourism functions. The DOT will provide local government units with technical assistance and capacity building programs to prepare them and implement their local tourism master plans, invest programs, product and market development initiatives, and also help them with data gathering capabilities among those, whole gamut of concerns. The last strategic goal, which is to pursue sustainable, inclusive, and resilient tourism, is anchored on a flagship program, which is in partnership with the Asian Development Bank and the World Bank, called Transforming Communities Towards Resilient, Inclusive, and Sustainable Tourism. The acronym for that is actually TOURIST. The TOURIST program has 4 main objectives. First, to upgrade medium, small, and micro, small, and medium enterprises in the tourism value chain. Second is to ensure that everyone has access to opportunities and tourism experiences by increasing the participation of women and other marginalized sectors in tourism development. Third is to help build and strengthen capacities of destinations for conservation and climate smart investments. And finally, in order to fully attain a resilient, inclusive, and sustainable tourism industry, we will set emergency plans and provide guidance to local government units and the private sector as well in preparing crisis management plans based on UN, WTO, and ASEAN guidelines. It is on this foundation that the DOT will build on the next National Tourism Development Plan covering the years 2022 to 2028. So as I speak, workshops, consultations, focus group discussions are being done in order to revisit this, and along with Jojo Clemente, of course, the president of TCP and his members. The policies in this refreshed NTDP hope to enable an environment that will sustain the tourism sector and make the sector more resilient in the face of adversities like this pandemic, natural disasters. We've had very strong hurricanes even through the pandemic, and of course, man-made crisis. Last week, this is so a source of pride for all of us. We hosted the World Travel and Tourism Council's Global Summit. For the first time since the pandemic, we actually had 1,200 plus physical attendees, and more than 600 of those came from other countries, from 50 countries across the world. And these delegates came here, convened in Manila, and discussed what travel means in a changing world, how the sector can not only thrive and drive economic growth, but enhance social progress, and how we can move towards a more regenerative form of tourism. So your topic today also is quite apt and timely. Hosting this important tourism event signaled our commitment to reshaping our industry for the benefit of all humankind, rebalancing the old, quote, business comes first, unquote, policy to one that prioritizes equity, accountability, and social responsibility. And because of all this, Secretary Berna says, I can say that we have nowhere to go but towards a better future. The pandemic gave us an opportunity to restart as we figured out what Philippine tourism ought to be, one that promotes and protects our natural and cultural heritage and our very own Filipino people. Let me again thank the Manila Times for this timely forum and for your support of the tourism industry. I look forward to what my fellow speakers, very good friends Jojo and Oka of NCCA, will share about their respective sectors as we collectively strive for a healthy, sustainable recovery. Maraming salamat po and mabuhay.
Thank you for that enlightening talk, Antoinette. Conrad?
Yeah, okay, Mama, tonight we will be having an open forum towards the end of this virtual event. So we are enjoying you to stick around. No?
My pleasure po.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. For now, it's time to introduce our second speaker. Okay, his name is Jose Clemente III. He is the president of the Tourism Congress of the Philippines and president of Raha Tours Philippines from 2001 to 2009 and from 2013 to the present. He joined the company in 1992 as a reservations officer and climbed the ranks to become its assistant general manager and then general manager within 5 years. He also worked as a senior executive for Trans Inter Corporation, Philippine Travel Agencies Association, Movenpick Resort and Spa Cebu, and World Walker Destinations. He also shared his expertise at Enderun Colleges in 1992. He also served in various senior executive capacities in various tourism industry organizations such as PATA Chapter, Philippine Tour Operators Association, the Philippine Travel Agencies Association of the Philippines, and the ASEAN Tourism Forum. He is also a green archer from his elementary till his high school days, and he earned his university degree at St. Mary's College of California in Moraga, USA. So everybody, let's give it up for Jose Jojo Clemente III. The floor is yours, Mr. Clemente.
Thank you very much, Sir Conrad. I'm usually not very comfortable with those long introductions. But anyway, good morning to all our viewers today. I would like to specifically thank the Manila Times for inviting the Tourism Congress to be part of this forum. It's a very exciting subject right now. Tourism is back, as CEO Utonet mentioned, and the horizons are almost limitless now as we sort of normalize travel and tourism around the world. Let me just have a very short presentation today just to share with you things that have been going on in the industry, no? And in keeping with today's forum, where do we go from here? For us to understand where do we go from here, I think we need to have a short look as to where we were for the past 2 years. So please allow me to just recap some of the things that have happened. No? Prior to the pandemic, Philippine tourism began to assert itself as a rising star in the country's economy. Just to throw some pre-pandemic figures, tourism accounted for almost 12% of the country's GDP. We earned almost 3 trillion pesos in revenues from both inbound and domestic travel. We employed 5.5 million people directly, and visitor arrivals reached an all-time high of 8.26 million. So we were really poised to be the rising star of Asia in 2020. Based on our trade shows and the various meetings and reports that we were receiving from late 2019 to early 2020, it seemed that we would have set another record figure for arrivals in 2020. Well, unfortunately, things happened and our borders were closed to travelers since mid-March of 2020 with the lockdown. Of course, international arrivals disappeared as other countries also closed their borders and also limited travel for their nationals. So in a sense, parang it was like a faucet that was turned off, no? Both internationally and domestically. For us, of course, only returning Filipinos and overseas foreign workers, or OFWs, along with members of the diplomatic corps and other special business or economic visas were allowed to enter, but with quarantine and testing requirements. These quarantine and testing requirements also proved to be a deal breaker for some people who were able to come back, who were allowed to come back because of the length of time and the expense, of course, that would be required to fulfill these requirements. So really, all that we had from the time were the returning Filipinos and overseas foreign workers. Okay. To add to the total situation, we were also hoping that domestic travel would be able to sustain the tourism industry even in the short term. But because of the effects of the pandemic, the LGUs in the Philippines also restricted the inter-island travel and virtually sealed off provinces to prevent the spread of COVID. So as far as the domestic travel avenue was concerned, that was also closed to us. As a result, a good number of stakeholders, or most of us, at that time, hotels, travel agencies, tour operators, tourist transport companies, and other stakeholders suspended operations. At this time, we were just hoping that it would be a short interim. No? We were even hopeful that it would just be a matter of a month or two, not expecting that it would actually stretch 2 years. Luckily, though, for some of our stakeholders, accommodations were eventually allowed to reopen and be used as quarantine facilities or for billet of essential industries like the BPOs. So at least one part of our stakeholders were able to continue operations and limit unemployment. Okay. During this time, an estimated 1 billion jobs in the tourism industry were lost in the course of the pandemic. So workers were also put on temporary leave or layoffs. So a lot of people were totally inactive or were forced to go into other lines of businesses just to survive because of the uncertainty of where tourism was headed. Because at that time it seemed like COVID would be endless. No, other partners in the industry like tourist transport operators also lost their vehicles. So, well, I just put a little figure there. It says global tourism reaches $730 billion in losses in just 8 months. So you can imagine the global effect of tourism, which was very robust pre-pandemic and on the rise as well. Okay. Just to show you what happened, March 15, the Philippines closed its borders to foreigners. And then we also needed to have some sort of support lifeline through the Bayanihan 2, which we did, fortunately. There were also programs by the DOLE, which sort of alleviated some of the financial concerns. But the tourism industry being closed for this long actually needed more help, no? And just for example, hotels were hit by drops in business travel and MICE to the extent that some hotels closed, no? Some well-known brands like the Makati Shangri-La at the time said they were temporarily closed. Marco Polo in Davao also closed, and the smaller stakeholders also ceased operations for that time. Now, talking about where we came from, now we talk about where are we going now. So domestic tourism slightly rebounded with the loosening of travel requirements to popular destinations like Boracay, to Cebu, to Bohol in the fourth quarter of 2021. But we were again affected by the Omicron variant surge in early 2022. So we stopped. It was a stop and start kind of a situation that we had. Luckily, the Omicron surge only lasted for about 3-4 weeks. So by the beginning of February, we were able to again have a vital domestic travel industry. The most significant development, of course, was last January 28 when the government through the IATF announced that fully vaccinated tourists from countries that required no visas to enter the Philippines will be allowed to come in subject to pre-arrival testing and travel insurance with COVID coverage starting February 10, 2022. At that time, we were having conversations, the DOT, the TPB, Secretary Puyat was also asking whether what we expected coming in. And I said, ma'am, we're expecting people to come in, but the numbers is anyone's guess at this point. Luckily, from the first month arrival, no, from Feb 10 to 28, we received a total of 47,715 foreign tourist arrivals. And the first day that people came in on Feb 10, I think we had about 1,000 tourists that came in. So it was really a very, very pleasant surprise for us. Like I said, 2022 is sort of like the 0 year now. If you're finding basis for statistics later on, parang nag-reset talaga ang tourism industry. So that first day alone, we felt really very good. And with the weeks that followed, arrivals continued to increase, which gave us confidence that we might be on the right track to resume tourism in the Philippines. The top 3 source markets during the first month were the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom. Of course, as expected, most of the people from the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom were balikbayans or returning Filipinos, but doubtless we also counted them as foreign arrivals as they were holding foreign passports, and they also engage in tourism activities where they're here. So there's really no more distinction between balikbayans and other foreign markets that we have. So just to give you an idea of where we are right now, as of April 24, we have, as COO Tonet mentioned earlier, we have a total of 313,050 arrivals so far. And as we can see from a month-to-month basis, the arrivals continue to climb. It's hard to predict where the numbers will go from May onwards because this is the traditional low. We are now entering the traditional low season once June, July, August comes in. But from a tour operator point of view, which we are seeing more inquiries than usual for the what we call the off-season month. So we're quite confident that we will be able to sustain some of this growth moving forward, with a lot more bookings really coming in towards the winter period. But we will have some assumptions that we will have to make, which I will show you a little bit later on. So as of now, all things are doing well, and we keep our fingers crossed that we continue to be a destination for travelers who are engaging in what we playfully call revenge travel. Okay. What we noticed now in the first couple of months that came in, most of the foreign tourists that came were from the long-haul market, such as Europe and North America. Now, people were asking, why was this so? We have to remember that in Europe and North America, the ability to travel or the requirements to travel are looser than what we have here in Asia. There's not too many tests required anymore for going out or coming back, no quarantine. So it's much easier for them to take trips and to come back to their home countries eventually. So we suspect that this is one of the factors that played into why the long-haul market were the first people to come into the Philippines. Domestic travel also started to increase as the number of cases of Omicron infections began to creep downward, and LGUs again loosened restrictions. As of now, most of our domestic tourism destinations have started to reopen, as evidenced, by Banawe just opening up a few weeks ago. Sagada is just opening up, and again, the robust domestic travel patterns have emerged during this past Holy Week. We saw that Boracay even breached the carrying capacity, so people are now really willing to go again and visit other places in the country. Demand continues to remain robust for the following months, and we expect more of the winter season of 2022, barring any unforeseen circumstances. Okay. So again, COO Tonet mentioned the WTTC conference, which happened here last week. And the assessment was that the Philippines actually reignited travel in Asia Pacific, being one of the first countries, or even dare I say, the first country to reopen to foreign tourism without any quarantine requirements and without any arrival testing procedures. So these factors, which were actually recommended by the doctors of the IATF, really helped us to resume tourism in the Philippines, and now we are reaping the benefits of that. As we go forward, there are certain things that we in the private sector are looking at now, things that can affect tourism moving forward. And the number one thing that we are looking at right now is the situation in the Ukraine. We are hoping that the situation does not escalate, and peace is eventually established in that area, because it really has affected global travel also, especially with regard to petroleum products. Of course, we know that air travel is one of the most important, or one of the basic elements of travel, and high petroleum prices and uncertainty over areas where our flights fly over can be a deterrent to travel later on. And the second point plays into that, the prices and rates of tourism products will have a tendency to go up as petroleum prices start to go up as well. So these are things that we are closely monitoring. Of course, we are still in the middle of a pandemic. The WHO has not lifted it, and we are always on guard for new strains of COVID, whether they be the mild strain or, God forbid, a stronger strain that we've already had. And again, this would be one of the prime determinants whether we can continue with the recovery of tourism. Okay. We're also looking at the resumption of full flight frequencies. As we saw in the during the pandemic, a lot of air carriers, domestic and international, had reduced their flights, of course, for economic measures and for practicability. And this also hampered international tourism. As we are now seeing the resumption of people traveling, it's imperative that our carriers continue to again build up their flight frequencies to go back to where they were pre-pandemic or even more, with the desire now to travel and, as I mentioned earlier, to engage in revenge tourism. Okay. Locally, one thing we are looking at here in the Philippines is how the LGUs will use their additional budgets for tourism as a result of the Mandanas ruling. Local government units will be receiving amounts for tourism because of the Mandanas ruling. They will now be able to budget for their marketing expenses for tourism products. So we would like to be able, now as a Tourism Congress, we would like to be able to help LGUs to plot or to come up with marketing initiatives that will promote their respective areas. How we use this budget will also determine how visible we will be in the international market. So it plays an important role as far as Philippine tourism is concerned. Okay. Now, there was also a shift in what travelers were looking for. No? Of course, they are still looking for sand and sea as far as the Philippines is concerned. That's really our main product, and this is something that we have acknowledged already. But during the time of the pandemic, people's outlooks sort of changed, and we found new trends that came up as reported to us by our partners and by our Department of Tourism offices abroad. No? And these are the common things that travelers will be searching for moving forward. No? They will be looking for more experiential tours, meaning to say they want to be involved. It's not just a matter anymore of just sitting in cars or buses and looking to this monument to the left, monument to the right. They want to engage in more active and tactile activities, going to the second point, meaning to say they would like to be able to experience stuff like handicraft making, actual planting of crops, harvesting them, learning certain crafts, things that would expand their horizons. Being locked up for 2 years made people realize that there is such a bigger world out there which we took for granted. And I think tourists now are looking for things that would enrich their lives. And other things they would be looking for would be tours that explain and show the culture and history of the Philippines on a deeper scale. Whereas before, when we visit countries, we just get parang history 101 of a country. But now there are certain things that they will find interesting, and they can, and we need to find linkages with our culture, our history, to wherever particular country they come from, just to show them that we are all interconnected in some way or another. Culinary experiences also. Again, being locked up for 2 years, you were only probably limited to what you can cook, what you can order out. And people are looking now for genuine experiences, because culinary experiences has become, or was becoming, one of the main reasons for travel prior to the pandemic. Now, people more so want to try out new food. They become more adventurous. And the Philippines, with all our islands, is pretty much a perfect destination to showcase what culinary offerings we have. Of course, importantly also, people are looking for places that have more open spaces, lesser people. because of the fear of pandemic or being infected. And again, this plays perfectly into the Philippines because we do have 7,000 islands, and we have more places to discover and develop. So if we play our cards right, we do what we needs to be done, we can really be a prime player moving forward in the pandemic. Okay, just some of the experiences that people would be looking for. These kinds of things that they would want to see. Okay, now before I end my presentation, now we look forward. So what do we need to look at? No, we need to develop more destinations and gateways into the Philippines, as I mentioned earlier. We have only scratched the surface of what we can offer as far as a destination is concerned. 7,000 islands is no joke. But for us to be able to use the 7,000 islands, we need to have proper infrastructure. We need to have gateways in place for us to be able to spread the benefits of tourism across the country. So in connection with that, of course, we will need investors and investments for sustainable tourism infrastructure. So we need to build hotels, airports. We need to put in ferries, more inter-island flights, things like that. More of these investments can really put the Philippines over the top as a viable or even a desirable destination for tourism. The next point is something that I think CEO Otonet would agree with me, is that we need to have close government and private sector partnership. In the last 4 years, or especially during this pandemic, we have seen how effective this partnership was. The DOT, TPB, and the other attached agencies were also closely engaging, not only with the Tourism Congress of the Philippines, but with the other tourism organizations, not only here in Metro Manila, but around the regions, to come up with solutions to problems that came up during the pandemic. And this was something that proved to be very beneficial to both sides. Of course, we cannot agree 100% on everything, but the thing is, we were able to power through the pandemic because of this partnership. One thing also that was mentioned during the pandemic, and is still being mentioned now, and even being discussed during the WTTC summit last week, was the need for streamlined travel requirements, both globally and domestically. As of now, different countries and different provinces here in the Philippines still have some differences as far as seamless travel is concerned. There are still different requirements, different apps that you need to sign up with, different testing requirements. And as tourism continues to recover, there will be a need to streamline or at least find a common set of requirements that will make travel easier moving forward. We also cannot overstate the need for the appropriate budget for the DOT and marketing, and its marketing, to be in step with our ASEAN neighbors. In years past, the Philippines has always received a lower budget compared to what other nations in the region have been allocated. Of course, Thailand being the foremost, probably the foremost country in terms of a destination that is really supported by the government. With the statistics that I gave earlier, with how much the tourism accounted for in GDP, how much in employment, how much in revenues, I think it's about time that if we are really serious in making tourism a real engine of economic growth in the Philippines, appropriate resources must be given to tourism. And finally, maybe not as a side note, but something that we realized during the pandemic, that there is a need for the creation of a disaster or a calamity fund for the tourism industry in case of another pandemic-like event. What happened to tourism during the pandemic was that we were considered non-essential for the most part because of the nature of the business that we have. And that being the case, we were always the last priority as far as assistance or ayuda was concerned. And we really had to fight for whatever we got. Unlike other industries, of course. We did understand that, of course, in the great scheme of things, when you don't have tourism or tourists coming in, of course, tourism becomes a non-essential industry. But there must also be the outlook that once tourism resumes, you must have stakeholders still alive and surviving to again build up that significant part of the economy. So I think we've learned our lesson as far as resources are concerned. So this is something that is on our wish list as far as that is concerned. With that, I'd like to end my presentation today, and will be willing to answer questions at the end of the program. Thank you very much.
Okay, that was a very enlightening presentation, Mr. Clemente. Now let's go on to our fourth speaker. Our third speaker. He is currently the executive director of the NCCA. They call him OCAB, which stands for Organizing for Culture and the Arts. And when he ran for Davao City Councilor in 2013, his campaign slogan was OCA mismo. And Organizing for Culture and Arts has been OCA's life work. He actually started young by getting involved in school plays in an elementary school run by RVM nuns, and carried on with his passion on his high school days at the Davao National High School. He also had theater training under PETA and Kulturang Atin Foundation led by Nestor Horfilia. He later became the executive director of the Kaliwat Performing Artists Collective, which unfortunately he had to give up so that he can become the NCCA executive director. He also had a work stint at the Senate with then Senator Gregorio Gringo Honasan in 1995. And after that, he served as the Community Relations Coordinator of then Davao City Mayor Rodrigo Duterte. And under the Duterte's term as mayor, he was in charge of organizing and managing the city's major festivals. Now that he is executive director of the NCCA, he believes in the power of culture and the arts in transforming people and society and helping promote Philippine tourism. So, Mr. Kasaysay, you take the floor now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that very generous introduction. And with that, I would like to thank Manila Times for giving us a platform to discuss Philippine tourism. And also, I would like to thank Attorney Antoinette Velasco Aliones for sharing with us the context and framework of our tourism strategic plans on how we move forward. So again, in behalf of all the artists, cultural workers, we would like to extend our greetings from the National Commission for Culture and the Arts. Last Sunday, April 23, 2022, the NCCA spearheaded the International Dance Day concert at the historic Metropolitan Theater, which was attended by almost 1,000 people in the live audience. For me, it was a strong signal that we have already returned to our pre-pandemic ways of doing things, except for enforcing health protocols such as wearing of masks and observe social distancing. It was a monumental moment for us at the NCCA and for all the artists, dancers, choreographers, and cultural workers to finally return to live performances. It was a symbolic moment that the newly restored Metropolitan Theater is ready for bigger things to happen. In this relevant event, we are gathered to take a fruitful perspective from the confronted challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic and its immense effect on arts and culture. Being the primary government arm dedicated to promote and protect Filipino arts and culture, the NCCA has given assistance to our cultural workers and artists during the onset of the pandemic, as well as initiated programs and projects to inspire our kababayans to continue moving forward despite the tides of this pandemic. Padayon, as the title of our online program connotes, which means moving forward. In the awareness and literacy of our cultural heritage tourism, we have come to the realization that it is indeed fundamental to study the importance of our very own cultural heritage sites. In the long run, as it benefits our local economy, education, arts, culture, and traditions, we refrain from the irreparable and irreversible damage to the heart of Asia's cultural identity, as described by United Nations World Tourism Organization, or UNWTO, in view of a vivid outlook of cultural heritage tourism, may we understand that our cultural heritage is not just the past, but rather the past of a particular people or community in a living context. These, in a clearer sense, are not just reflected through monumental forms, but in more intangible ways, such as our contemporary behaviors, practices, festivals, cultural rituals, artistic performances, and creative expressions as key element to cultural heritage tourism. Other experts aptly put culture is the basis of our tourism. Through these intangible ways, we can proudly showcase our preserved enacted traditions, which are the genuine value of diverse, sustainable tourism development. The NCCA's role in the preservation and protection of cultural heritage sets forth the privileges of our local cultural property when it comes to priority government funding, incentives, private support of conservation, protection, and restoration. All this then benefits dedicatedly our natural cultural treasure, national historical landmarks, official heritage marker, important cultural property sites, and monuments. In this sense, the NCCA plays an abundant contribution to the Philippine tourism as it spearheads the Cultural Properties Protection and Regulation Division, or CPPRD, which aims to enforce certain provisions of our Republic Act 10066, or the National Cultural Heritage Acts of 2009, or the Republic Act 11333, or the National Museum Act of 1998. Through the CPPRD, we are enabled to collaborate with the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, or UNESCO, in ensuring the conservation and management of the World Heritage Sites of the Philippines, which are divided into cultural and natural heritage sites. Under the cultural heritage sites, we are blessed to have our very own Baroque churches, historic city of Vigan, rice terraces of Cordilleras, and of course, for the natural heritage sites, we have the Mountain Hamiguitan Range Wildlife Sanctuary, Puerto Princesa Subterranean River National Park, and Tubataha Reefs Natural Park. Not just that, as declared by the National Museum and NCCA, the country has now 311 important cultural property and natural cultural treasure. Also, we now have registered 186 local cultural property consists of heritage landmarks and historical sites. In the knowledge of these cultural resources, let this be our call to action in exerting more effort and dedication to merit protection and to hold responsibility accountable for our important cultural property and national cultural treasure. Let us flourish our solidarity and unity starting from the Commission to our pertinent cultural agencies, local government units, such as that of the Sangguniang Resolution, and down to each individual standing with a firm vision of a Filipino people with a strong sense of nationhood and deep respect for cultural diversity. To this remarkable undertaking, we are enlightened and empowered to achieve our goal to stimulate and local solutions in our communities through capacity building in best practices. Daghang salamat sa inyong tanang at mabuhay po tayong lahat.
Thank you for that very inspiring talk, Oka. It makes me want to pack my bags and be on a jet plane already to immerse in our cultural experiences.
Yes, thank you.
So please stay on as we go into the open forum portion of our program. And may I invite also our previous two speakers, Tonette and Jojo, to please join us. So we'll be fielding questions from our audience at this point.
Okay.
Regarding, of course, congratulations for the most recent World Tourism Summit that we've had. I understand it was very successful. And well, we do have a question regarding, because Tonette, you mentioned earlier that there are a lot of marketing materials and you have the 360 view of tourist locations. So these are all some developments or augmentation of existing or previous marketing. We have one person, Ida Chongson, asking how they may view or where they can find these 360-degree virtual tours and all the other marketing materials that you mentioned.
Thank you, Dafford, for that, and also for your support to the summit that was recently held. And thanks to Ida for that question, because it means they're really interested. I will type in the chat the specific link, but both the microsites of the DOT and the Tourism Promotions Board actually have these available. So if I may mention in particular, the virtual tours, you're right, Dafford, these were augmentation of the traditional materials that we had to campaign for the country. Through the pandemic, if you remember, during the lockdown in March, April 2020, we launched the virtual Visita Iglesia. So that gave the impetus to developing further new materials that cover also the rest of the destinations across the country. So each region is there and you can actually browse it on your own. And yeah, I'll type the link in a minute. Thank you.
Okay, sure. If I may just give a follow-up question on that though. In terms of, because when the moment we have digital components and virtual aspects of our existing on-site or physical experiences, it allows us to better have a feedback system in terms of metrics actually. So we're able to measure how effective these campaigns are better with the digital components. Would you be able to share with us how it has helped or how well we've improved with these virtual tours, augmented reality experiences, and so forth to complement our actual experiences of the countryside, of the country?
Yeah, again, you're right on the spot, no? The Philippines, despite our quite slow internet speed, we top the world in terms of social media use. And you're very right, Dafford. the adoption of the digital content that have been made available. It is also expanded the reach in terms of engagements. So particularly our millennials, no, galing mag-share. It's easier to also disseminate and cascade the different materials because they're available digitally, and it doesn't cost as much as the traditional media forms, no, that we had before. So engagements have increased, if I may say, have multiplied even. And this is something that we will keep also, no, looking forward. As to your question, how does the future of tourism look like? I think it's going to be hybrid for the next couple of years before we actually ease back into the full physical, face-to-face activities that we've had prior to the pandemic. Because as you said, there are benefits to be reaped, we have benefits derived from that, like expanded access and also the engagements are there, real time.
Conrad, would you have any questions related to that engagement and so forth with our various markets?
Yes, I'd rather ask another question. Particularly on this, the Ukraine-Russian war. Have you ever? Has the private sector or the government seen Russia as a potential market for tourists? I've heard that there are some tourist arrivals from Russia, but this is very, very sparse. Maliit lang baga. Now, it is also in the best interest that this Russian-Ukraine conflict be resolved immediately. Now, my question is is Russia a potential market for the Philippines, given the fact that we are a tropical country and they're more of temperate? That's all, sir.
Yeah. If I may, Sir Conrad, actually, Russia has already been one of our bigger markets prior, no? When they opened Russia for travel, I think, how many years ago was that? The interest for the Philippines was actually quite large. And we actually, I don't have the figures with me right now, but if you go back years, Russia actually became one of our main markets for Europe. It only stopped when the Russian economic crisis hit, when the ruble devalued. So we saw a fall in Russian travelers coming to the Philippines. But recently, prior to the conflict, they were starting to make a comeback again. But unfortunately, because the Russians now have lost access to some of their payment methods, like credit cards and everything, again, that market has fallen off. So not even Russia also, but from the Ukraine, from that whole region, actually, we've already had arrivals. So as you said, it is in our best interest that conflict be resolved sooner rather than later.
Well taken, sir. Thank you for your answer. So,
yeah. Sir, the fourth, if I just might go back to the previous topic about marketing.
Yes, please do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Alam mo, in fairness to the DOT and to the TPB, there were many people during the pandemic who were questioning why was there still budget for marketing when there were other priority things that needed to be taken care of. The simple answer to that was that we still need to keep the Philippines in the consciousness of travelers once the pandemic ends. And when we reopened February 10, I think it showed the value of keeping our marketing initiatives alive during that time. We may not have been able to allocate the same amount of marketing resources, but we were still able to. Again, in all due fairness to DOT and TPB. And that is the reason now why we are reaping the benefits of reopening the industry. So people remember the Philippines because
yes,
with so little, we were able to do so much. And my hat's off to DOT and TPB for that.
Thank you, Jojo. Oka, maybe would you like to add your 2 cents to the current discussion?
Yes, actually, the pandemic gave us a more deeper understanding of our culture and arts, most especially in educating our young people. So this gave us a platform through virtual. Now, although to be honest with you, kumakapa pa rin po yung ahensya as far as developing this new platform in reaching out our youth, because these are the future of our generations, and we would like them to educate our history, our past, how very colorful it is, and how it affected our present generation. So in appreciating this, give us a sense of pride of moving forward. So I think the pandemic also gave us a positive aspect in this light. So it gave us more understanding and deepening our sense of patriotism and sense of nationalism in appreciating our history. So that's it.
Yeah. If I may add to Oka, no, Dafford,
Yes.
if I may. And Oka, you will agree with me, because last
of
Sunday,
We were together.
we were together last Sunday at the Met, because my daughter
Yes.
performed, so I was a
Yes.
stage mother role. I had a stage mother role, but it was the
At
first
least you're
time.
honest.
Yeah,
Yes.
it was the first time for the dance community. 22 troops all over the country,
To the country.
Came together to dance. And the energy, Dafford, Sir Conrad, it's different, no? So the challenge really for our culture sector, well, it's important to know them, to read about them, to view them. It's a 4-dimensional, even 5-dimensional, di ba, product to really fully enjoy. You need to watch it with your eyes, the food you need to taste. Yung virtual tour, sige nga, paano mo naman titikman yung Bicol Express ng Bicol?
Totoo.
So,
True.
diba? So, yun talaga yung mga limitasyon dyan. But yeah,
Yes.
so I would like to just bring that also realization, no, na as Jojo mentioned kanina, our tourists are looking for immersive, experiential
Yes.
opportunities to really get to know better our culture. So, yeah, walang katapat pa din. And, yeah,
And
thank
aside
you.
from that, I
Yes.
think Oka mentioned that it's not just experiential, but it
Yes.
could be a strong vehicle for nation building with
Yes.
cultural tourism encouraged amongst the youth.
Correct. Yeah. And also yung inclusion, no? Kasi what really struck me during Sunday's performance was the couple where the husband is actually wheelchair bound. Ala, Dafford, kaya mo ba yun? Nagsasayaw sila. Pero, so imagine, so we are a very inclusive society. We
Yes.
want everybody to have the same access to developing the talents and sharing the God-given gifts that we have to showcase our country's culture and heritage.
Yes.
I think Conrad wants to share a question actually.
Yeah. I'm very much aware of the value of yung mga sinasabi niyong native dances and tourist spots like the rice terraces. Unfortunately, what I have observed from what the students are learning from college, because I was once a professor in the TMT college, is there is very little emphasis on yung mga cultural spots like the rice terraces and even yung mga dances natin, to the point that the youth are even more aware of what the tourist spots are in other countries and what the latest dances are on TikTok. It's very disappointing.
Yeah.
For one nga, I even told my student once, kung hindi ka Pilipino, kung hindi ka nakapunta sa rice terraces, and I think that
Correct.
rings true. So how do we solve that problem? Do we have to reach out to the CHED or even the Department of Education to emphasize or even to ask them, should
Yeah.
we have programs to kahit let them learn what the rice terraces are and mga tinikling dances natin nung high school. When I was in high school, that was emphasized. We even went to CCP to have these so-called field trips to watch those dances. Ngayon yata wala na eh. Ang mga field trip na lang is virtual and it's not even related to Philippine culture or something like that.
Oo. Mauna akong sumagot kay Conrad kasi this is something I have been in discussion with sa Halili Cruz School of Dance, no, Oka. So, ibibring in
Yes,
na kita
go.
ka. ah.
Yes.
Oo,
Go!
umuupa
Thank
na.
you very much.
Sabi ko, Conrad, dun sa mga dance troops, and I was speaking to teacher Shirley Halili, who is the NCCA Dance Committee Chair. I said, sakyan natin tong TikTok craze or whatever is the IG, and we'll bring the girls, the dancers, magsasayaw sila, dance in the destination. Diba? Ang cute yata yun, ha? Mahirap
Yes,
magtinikin
agree.
sa rice terraces, malalaglag ka doon. But just to, as you said, Sir Conrad, just kasi mahirap ipilit yung nakagawian natin. Siguro tayo dito yung mga same age group, no?
Yeah.
Na tayo talaga gusto natin ganito. But in this generation, iba eh. You need few seconds of something that really appeals to them. So, okay, we will give that to you. But also our ulterior desire to actually bring in the element of deepening appreciation for culture and heritage. So, we have
Yes.
to plot that. We have to plot that across the
Yes.
country, no?
Agreed.
And I told Teacher Shirley Halili, teach the TPB will support because this is one way to promote the destination. In the same way, Sir Conrad, last year, it was the 40th year of the Lubbock Children's Choir. And they could not do a concert. They didn't have money to support the scholars. But TPB told me, my staff, COO, it's not our mandate. But I said, we can make it our mandate. And you know how we did it? We asked the Lubbock Children's Choir to sing their repertoire in all the destinations within Bohol. So isn't that a good way to promote, but at the same
Agree.
time support them? So they have been able to come up with an album, an anniversary album, Soul of the Place. And in fact, they were selling the album at the WTTC Summit because the proceeds go to funding the scholarships of the kids. So it's a good way to connect all of the needs of the society. So salamat Sir Conrad, and we will tap you
Yes.
Kasama ka namin dito.
I think we're gonna start seeing Conrad on TikTok. That's a new thing.
Wag lang sayaw kasi
No, I kind of envy Conrad. He looks like he's joining our forum here from a tourist destination itself.
Oo. Actually, parang Panglao nga yan. Is it Panglao or Siargao?
I don't know. This is just virtual. But I hope
It's
that's
one-
real.
Oo, it's one of those two things. Oo. Travel na kayo. Oo.
Oo.
Well,
I will.
speaking of travel, if I may, one of the, I think it would be an important concern to consider, given that you did say or give us an idea that there are looser restrictions to allow the sector to get back on its feet and to allow international clients to come in droves again like before. However, we are aware and we know that some places are hotspots for COVID now. In fact, Hong Kong is just recently coming out of a lockdown, and Shanghai is still under hard lockdown, along with surprisingly New Zealand, which
Beijing.
had been one of the places that had been had reached zero cases. So now, how do we then deal with incoming tourists from these hot zones or high risk areas?
Well, I think we've made it simple in the sense that we require them to be fully vaccinated. I think that's the first line of defense that we have, is that we require them to be fully vaccinated. Now, I think the discussion in the IATF, COO, correct me if I'm wrong, no, is that what will we consider now as fully vaccinated? Would it be with the booster shot, with the first booster shot, or do we consider second booster shot? So I think that's still in discussion as far as the IATF is concerned. For us in the private sector, non-negotiable yung fully vaccinated. So that's like the barest minimum that we will require, no? And then even the testing before arrival, it's been made easy. Yeah. There's also an alternative now to the RT-PCR 48 hours. You can take an antigen test 24 hours prior to arrival. So that makes it easier and makes it cheaper in the same sense. So sa akin lang, for us, those two requirements are actually good enough right now for us to attract people. And I think we've already shown, I think it's, and yung quarantine period pala, that was a major breakthrough that we did away with the quarantine requirement. So
even if someone comes from, say, Beijing or New Zealand, then it that no longer requires a 10-day or so kind of.
Yeah.
Oo.
Because the negative RT-PCR test before travel and their vaccination status would suffice. Pag hindi sila vaccinated, dun lang sila ulit i-require mag-quarantine.
Mag-quarantine, yeah. 5 days yata,
Yes.
COO, no? Yeah.
Right now, it's 5 days.
In the cases of some of our markets, like you mentioned China, the fourth, no? I think it's also their government that's discouraging them from traveling muna.
Correct.
So,
Kasi even in Beijing now, no? Ang taas ng cases.
Yes. technically they're allowed to come in because we started allowing even visa required countries not to come in, but with the same conditions. But in some cases, it's the government that sort of telling them to don't travel first, or maybe outright no traveling allowed. So that sort of solves that problem in that sense.
Okay. Would you want to add to that in terms of how the NCCA would be able to deal with the surge in not cases but
Yeah.
tourists?
Yes. Actually, even our local partners, our local partners and LGUs are pushing through with their different festivals, and they are encouraging us to be part of which, to document and then to share our platform, especially so that we have a platform of the Facebook and Instagram of our NCCA page to share what's going on. So actually, even us, no, kahit na takot din kami to travel, even domestically. But then again, it's our mandate, it's our call of duty. So we just have to rely on our vaccination. As they said, na kailangan pa rin natin talaga maging handa. And yun nga, last September 23, yung Sunday event natin, attorney, yun yung naging problema, to enforce talaga the health protocols. Kasi, because we are opening up, our young people and even us, no, na talagang we are eager to experience what we have not experienced for the past 2 years. So nakakalimutan natin, number one, yung social distancing. And because we are now, we are ready to mingle, we forget that we have to embrace, that's how warm Filipinos are. No, we embrace, we beso-beso. So nakakalimutan natin na those are some of the protocols, health protocols that we discourage from because of the pandemic. But then, wala eh. Talagang sabik na sabik tayo, makita ang isa't isa, ma-experience and everything. We tend to forget the health protocols and later on face the consequences. So we just hope that we really enforce the health protocols, the sanitation of the hands, the touching and everything, the mask especially. So yun lang yun. We always remind our people, our cultural workers, our artists, especially now, the election, we can see online on how people attend rallies, even the performers not wearing masks. I just hope and pray that everything will be okay after the
Uy, mahirap naman magtinikling ng may mask.
Correct. Even kakanta. Even kumanta, mahirap talaga.
But you know what, Dafford, no, and Sir Conrad, I will let you into a secret. Kami, as Tourism Promotions Board, even now, that the destinations do not require RT-PCR test or even antigen test before going. For the TPB, I have maintained it an internal policy. Before we go, like tomorrow, I'm going to Sorsogon for the regional travel fair. All our team go through RT-PCR swab because I don't want our destinations, to some, when an untoward incident happens, I don't want a case being attributed to tourism and the Tourism Promotions Board. So it's a commitment that we continue to live by. My own team, kawawa na yung mga ilong namin. Sabi ko, mas lalo ako. Kasi mas madalas ako mag-travel sa inyo. Sometimes in a week, I get 3-4 swabs, no? But sabi ko, but this is part of the sacrifice we need to do now in order to sustain the gains that we have to reopen the destinations. And kayo, our partners in the media, our business leaders, kasama po namin kayo kasi this is really a collective responsibility, no? I do not think twice in calling out our partners when I see violations because it is, to me, sabi ko, nakikiusap ako politely, huwag nyo namang sayangin yung mga pinagsakripisyohan na natin. So, yun po.
That's very reassuring. But the thing is, though, despite all the best intentions, and for some it's become lip service, and we are observing that behaviors that would kind of hint at a possible surge coming in the coming months, especially after the elections, there are predictions even from official sources that there would be or there have been preparations for that possible increase in numbers again. So again, since you have in all your three speeches, you mentioned resiliency and being able to deal with pandemics and similar situations as part of business as usual. Maybe could each of you give just a little bit more of an idea how, in spite of having another increase in cases, we can still manage to move forward and continue building up the economy through tourism.
Okay.
Jojo muna. Okay.
yeah.
Age before beauty.
Thank you, CEO. The simplest, one of the simpler answers to that is that let's not be complacent, especially with regard to booster shots. Kasi as it was proven during the Omicron surge, and I think maybe because the reason it was milder was that we've already achieved a certain degree of immunity because of the vaccines that we had last year. So we have to continue on getting the boosters as needed. Kasi we've proven that becomes a firewall in terms of the spread of the virus. And we also need to, and I always keep reminding people whenever, given the opportunity to speak in fora like this, is that, and as you said, let's not forget to observe the health and safety protocols. Let's still wear our masks. Let's still wash our hands, carry around hand sanitizers or alcohol. Simple things like that actually help to avert. And, it sort of mitigates whatever possible effects of another surge comes. So again, knock on wood, sana wala na. But if it does come, then we still need to continue all of these things. And so far so good. Wala pa naman kaming nare-receive na reports from tourists. I don't know, COO, if you've already received any reports from tourists that have contracted COVID while they're here. So far,
none. Thanks.
We haven't received them. Thank God. So just continuous observance of what is recommended by our medical institutions like the WHO, the IETF, and things like that. So that's the best way we can, personally, how we can stop or mitigate further effects of COVID.
If I may use one word to describe that effort, in Sir Conrad, that would be mindfulness. Through the pandemic, we have seen how, before the pandemic, we have seen how people were mindless. For instance, very concretely, di ba tayo pag nakasakay sa aeroplano, pag-announce na boarding is ready, everybody goes to the line without distancing. Samantalang may upuan naman, pero nag-uunahan. Pag-landing ng aeroplano, nag-uunahan na naman. But now, through the pandemic, I've traveled through the pandemic, and now, we cannot go back to that system. You really have to abide by the row by row boarding and the row by row disembarkation. And by mindfulness, this encompasses what I said this during the summit when I sat in a panel. 3 A's. Awareness. Dapat alam natin lahat, ano na yung sitwasyon doon sa lugar, what are the protocols, what are the requirements. Nag-change ng protocol, wala ng RT-PCR, antigen na lang, but you need to register. So, awareness. And awareness, speaking of, we launched in November 2020 the official Philippine Travel App. Right now, it is an information hub. It contains all the information you need to know. What destinations are open, what are the requirements. The second A is acceptance. Tanggapin natin na ito yung mga kailangan para maka-move on tayo. Kasi if we continue to be in denial, mahirap mag-move on. And the third A is to act with agility. By acting with agility, talagang, kahit na grudging yung compliance mo, pero act pa din, na sumunod tayong lahat. And this mindfulness effort is something na dapat talaga, through post-pandemic years, we need to continue to observe. And kayo pong business sector leaders, if I may say this, baka hindi na ako maimbita ulit, for saying this. But you hinted at it, effort, during the introduction na, we cannot actually go back to pre-pandemic way of tourism. We need to move forward to a better way of doing tourism. And for you in the business establishment, that's not just looking at the bottom line, because you need to look at the triple bottom line of course, ensuring there's prosperity with your profits in mind, but the other two pegs of the triangle of looking after the planet, our Earth. Like sabi ni Jojo, nag-exceed yung Boracay ng carrying capacity. Naku, ang carrying capacity kailangan talagang sinusunod. And of course, the other P is yung people. Na we have to move forward with a greater consciousness and desire to really make this inclusive, that everybody wins. The communities, the workers, the indigenous peoples in the islands who actually own the ancestral lands where some of the destinations are found. So, yun po. Kaya nyo na ba yun? Kaya natin yun.
So, what do you think, Conrad? Kaya mo na ba? Kaya mo na ba?
Kakayanin yan.
Yes, of course. Yes, of course. Nakita ko naman sa pandemic na we became more disciplined in our social distancing and so forth. That's
Yes.
needed actually.
Yeah. At tayong mga Asyano, actually, Sir Conrad, tama ka. We're more compliant actually eh. Even during the WTPC summit, di ba, President Jojo, nakita mo, yung mga Filipinos and then the Asians, we were mostly wearing masks.
Yes.
The Caucasians and the foreign delegates were the ones na parang uncomfortable. Although, I have to give it to them na out of respect, when they approach and they see you're wearing a mask, they also put on their mask. So, yeah, nakakatuwa.
Yeah.
We have actually yung ating latest COVID stats, I think the past week is only 206 per day, yung new cases. And that's actually, I think, 25% decrease. And let's hope that goes down further.
It continues.
Yeah, and we should give credit naman siguro to not only to the citizens, yes, but also to the government and the IATF for doing such a good job.
Especially yung vaccination talaga, Sir Conrad.
Yes.
It really mattered. It mattered. And thankfully, ako nga 4 times a week nag-RT-PCR, puro negative. So sabi ko, sana ito talaga yung trend, no? I hope I represent the trend.
And get your booster shots. I already got mine. I don't know lang if I need a fourth. A second one. I really don't know. Pero I already got 3.
Yes, so I also had my boosters, and I was talking to Secretary Duque Wednesday night of last week. So sabi niya, ongoing yung studies as to mandating the fourth, the second booster. And also for those who are 17 and below, pinag-aaralan na din nila yung datos gathered from those who have received the jabs as to the safety, the efficacy of prescribing it for a booster shot for the 12 to 17 below.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, it was mentioned earlier, may term kasi si Jojo na I found very interesting. You mentioned kasi na yung revenge tourism, revenge travel, no? And since a lot of our viewers are really chomping at the bit, talagang gigil na travel na ako eh. Maybe you might want to share with us, like you mentioned, people want more experiential, more unique, and culturally immersed destinations and experiences. Top of your minds, would you be able to recommend some of the newer ones or the revamped ones, things that have been augmented some way or another? That way it's new or fresh, or it's at least not the same old as pre-pandemic times.
Okay. Well, one of the two destinations that come to the top of my mind are actually places like Dumaguete and Siquijor. We sort of take for granted that they've always been there, especially when you talk about Siquijor, ang iniisip natin yung mga aswang, yung mga manananggal and all of that. But, I've been there 3 times already, and I find it to be one of the more peaceful places in the Philippines. If you're really looking to sort of recharge, you want to meditate, you want to think about, in a peaceful atmosphere, Siquijor is a place to go. Dumaguete also, what's in Dumaguete? You'll be surprised. There's diving there, there's culture, there's food, things like that. And then Bicol, we always talk about Bicol, but somehow it sort of gets lost in the shuffle when people start talking about Boracay, Palawan, and all of this, no? Bicol is also one of the nicer places to visit, especially if you're a foodie. And there's, you'd be surprised, there are also a lot of resorts that are in that area na hindi lang natin talaga na natitignan. So, you know, off the top of my head, those are the things that I'm thinking of. And, you know, revenge travel nga, as you mentioned, then yung people are, they want to take revenge on COVID for locking us in for 2 years. So, gaganti kami, biyahe kami. And, you know, if you're looking for places to go, yeah, go. Even places like Masungi Geo Reserve, I'm surprised not too many people know about it. And
Because it's not for everybody also. You cannot hike.
Yeah. Well, but you know, for those who can,
For those who want to hike.
yeah,
diba? Oo.
and it's close to Metro Manila. So
Correct.
yung mga bata-bata na kaya pang umakyat ng bundok, you know, it's
Parang kami ni
place for them
Conrad.
to go. Yeah, yan. Mga
Yeah.
bagets, di ba?
Yeah.
So,
Actually, si Oliver said it in the chat, no? Yung less crowds, less danger. So the sentiment and the trend is that people prefer places that are less crowded. They prefer open spaces. They also prefer to take road trips instead of flying in an enclosed airplane.
Yeah.
So while there is pent-up demand, but there is aversion to mass tourism. You're very right, Oliver. And if I may contribute to what Jojo's mentioned, 3 F ako. Yung faith tourism, lahat yata tayo nagdasal, tayo lang yata yung bansa who continue to pray the Oratio Imperata every day during Mass. And we celebrated the 500 years of Christianity in 2021 when it was still pandemic year. And in fact, TPB, you know, launched a faith and heritage tourism tour program to deepen our appreciation of our stories as pilgrims. Diba? Lahat tayo yung pilgrims naman na nag-journey. And adding to what Jojo said, the churches, we have UNESCO heritage churches, diba, Jo? Miag-Ao in Iloilo. Then of course, ang San Sebastian dito sa Manila is the only steel church in Asia. So there are those important trivial facts to know, but at the same time, you take time to deepen the faith and our journey as pilgrims. And then the second F, of course, mentioned by Jojo, is food. So kung magdadasal ka sa Miag-Ao and magdasal ka na rin dun, ang mga simbahan sa Iloilo may gender segregation. Alam nyo ba yon, Sir Dafford? There are churches that have only male saints. Then you transfer to another church that have only female saints. And then when you get out, my God, so there's batchoy and of course food, diba? So food. And then, of course, there's culture. So there's faith, there's food, 2 of which are in Bicol. We are, like Naga City is the pilgrim city with Our Lady of Peña Francia. And then there's fun. As mentioned by Jojo, there's Masungi, those who are looking for adventure. And the TPB also with the regional offices of the DOT in partnership with our motorcycle riders. Nag-launch kami, Sir Dafford and Conrad, ng motorcycle tourism. Kasi yung mga hindi nakakabiyahe, walang aeroplano, on their 2 wheels, they could get to destinations we could not traditionally reach. And they would post this. So like I saw the post of Senator J.V. Ejercito, the Stone Church in Laurel, Batangas. I never knew about that. It's beautiful pala, no? And enrichable. So yung mga ganong initiatives na, bago to. And that's why, as sa speech ni Sec Berna kanina, kasama yung bike tourism. We have developed new bike trails in Bohol, no, and even in La Union.
That's another surge that we have in terms of bikers, both the motor and the foot type.
And we registered a record high of sales sa motorcycles. Sabi ng ating motorcycle industry, no? Through the 2 years of the pandemic. There's a question in the chat, if I may, before you go.
Yes,
na
go.
if there's data na on the 2021 socioeconomic indicators. We have yet to, the current year 2022, we have yet to get that from the Philippine Statistics Authority and NEDA. And as soon as that comes out, usually po the DOT conducts a briefing also. So thank you.
Yes. In addition to Attorney Aliones, I would like also to, as part of your destination later on when you travel, we have a lot of museums and galleries all over the country. Or even here in Metro Manila, I hope you could pay visit No, we, as mentioned by Attorney Aliones, we just have celebrated the 500 years of the journey of Magellan. We have one floor at the National Museum of Fine Arts dedicated during the journey of Magellan as he traveled all over the country, the Philippines. So rediscovering, our cultural and heritage, visiting galleries, and of course, the museums would also enrich our appreciation. Ayun, sa pagiging Pilipino natin. Yun po ang ma-add ko. Yes, Attorney?
At syempre, yung shopping.
Yes, of course. Don't forget.
Nakakamiss na. Kasi iba pa rin yung online. Di ba, President
Yes.
Jo? Iba yung online shopping dun sa nasusukat mo yung damit.
Nahahawakan.
Nahawakan at nakikita
Naamoy mo yung tela. Oo. Di ba? Talagang.
At magkaroon ng yung tawaran. No?
Correct.
Yun.
Yun. Oo, importante yun.
Huwag na makipagtawaran sa Grab rider, di ba? Yung
Yes. Negotiating.
I think Conrad has a question from our one of our business reporters, EJ Gomez.
One of our reporters wants to ask if there are any projections for tourism growth this year. Tight projections lang for the sector, and how much will it contribute to the country's GDP? So,
actually the WTTC data, diba? Their briefing shared statistics in terms of very positive, optimistic forecast in terms of contribution of the tourism to the economy. So they're actually saying like an incremental growth of even 6.7%. So, but that's, although yun nga, sabi nga namin ni President Jojo, mukhang masyadong optimistic yun, in addition to that 12.7 that we've had in 2019.
Yeah. The difficulty, Sir Conrad, in projecting, moving forward 2022 onwards, is that parang wala na kaming pagbabasihan from 2021, 2020. Parang na-reset lahat So, the way I look at it is parang yung statistics natin from pre-pandemic parang rendered useless na yun kasi this is a pretty new situation that we have now. So, ang mangyayari dyan as we move on 2 to 3 years down the line, 2022 will probably be the baseline year. I don't know if there is a formula that we can use now to project where we will be by December of this year, pero wala Anything is, there are so many things up in the air, and you have so many factors to consider that it's, I can just give you any number right now and, pwedeng tumama, pwedeng hindi. The most conservative projection I'm giving right now is that by the end of 2022, I think it is not out of the realm of possibility that we will hit about 1 to, let's say, 1.2, 1.3 million foreign arrivals by the end of this year.
Okay.
But that's as far as I will go. Yung tatanungin tayo ng ano yung growth rate natin month to month or 2023, that's almost impossible to predict right now.
Yeah. And if I may add, let me bring us back to the discussion on sustainability, because yun nga this has been running through my head during the WTTC summit, that we keep talking about sustainability and inclusion, and yet the parameters, the measures are still in terms of receipts and arrivals. And to me, yun nga not everything that counts can be counted. So I look forward to a day when we can really come up with indicators that capture sustainability, like how many families of indigenous peoples have been lifted out of poverty because of tourism in that area, rather than just having counters of how many arrivals did we have for the year, for the month, etc. So yun po.
Perhaps we could have a reward and recognition system for people who actually push those initiatives in terms of tourism. That could be a mechanism perhaps that would encourage them more to be able to just get more into the sustainability angle of the sector.
Yes.
Agree.
We do have it's more of a comment, but I'll phrase it in question form na lang, that Billy Ansiro says, basically, he hopes that we could encourage more cruise ships, since we have a lot of beautiful historical places and islands. So perhaps the question would be, how could we encourage more cruise ships to visit our
that really compels us to do our homework, part of which we've done, even through the summit. Our counterparts at the DOT who conduct market development, they've met with huge cruise ships, because it also happens that the chairman of WTTC, Arnold Donald, is actually chair of the Carnival group now that runs different huge cruises around the world. And so I don't want to preempt that, but there's so much to look forward to in terms of potential, and not just for us as a stop, as a checkpoint stop for the ships, but they're also looking in terms of, building capacity for actually shipbuilding, yung mga ganon ang usapan. So, and that's really very good, because that's also part of the Philippine development plan to develop cruise tourism. Yeah. Subic actually, even before the pandemic, used to receive visitors from cruise ships. And the Region 3 of the OD under Carol is working on reviving that and luring back those cruise ship tourists to Subic port. Thank you.
To add to that, one of the things also that we need in the Philippines, and I talked about it earlier in my slides, was the investments, we need to have like passenger terminals also, like in Hong Kong we always see the cruise ferry terminal there. We need to have facilities like that can also be a destination in themselves to attract the cruise lines to come to the Philippines. As of now, kasi when they dock into Manila, dun pa rin sila sa North Pier, and it's not really enticing, once you come in, parang di ba? But if you build them a terminal wherein it's really dedicated for cruise lines, or even say the bigger inter-island cruise companies that we have, that's a major enticement for them. Kasi alam natin na there are certain things where you can say if you build it, they will come. And a good passenger terminal, not only in Manila, but maybe in the major ports like Cebu,
and Cagayan de Oro, even Gensan, General Santos.
Yes,
Gensan, yeah.
Wow.
So if you have these kinds of infrastructure in those areas, it becomes easier for us to market it. We've been able to get cruise lines to come here, as CEO Otonet said, pero pwede pang paramihin yun. Pakita lang natin that we can actually accommodate, especially the mega ships. If we can do that, well,
And actually, Sir Jojo, iniisip ko nga, even domestically, Dafford, we have 7,641 islands. So I'm talking to those who are in the business na, from Manila, for example, from Manila to Coron, if you have cruise ships that ply this route domestically, so tayo, mag-workshop tayo dun sa barko, di ba, habang papunta doon. Pagdating doon, R&R ka na. Hindi ba? So yeah, that's maganda good. Siguro. Yeah, these are the ones in the pipeline.
Okay.
Well, just a follow-up question to EJ Gomez's initial question, our business reporter. You had mentioned youth engagement earlier, so can you please elaborate more on this? And how exactly can the government capitalize in an effort to promote and elevate the tourism industry here?
There are I can think of two concrete examples of that, how we engage the youth. One is the program called Voluntourism. So we're actually mobilizing the young people to volunteer for the different aspects of managing tourism destinations. And in the Save Our Spot campaign of the DOT, we are actually appealing to the youth, because they are the beneficiaries of the earth, of the resources of our country. So it's very important to pursue this zero waste, switching off lights and aircon when you're not in the room. So these are very simple campaigns that really call on volunteerism. The other one is we call the restorative or regenerative tourism, where a lot of young people, for example, if you go to Mount Puro for 3 days, 2 nights, part of your stay there is actually, part of what you paid for is that you will be given a seedling bang tawag doon sa bamboo, yung young bamboo na ipaplant mo, because they have bamboo forests. And so this is part of the regenerative or restorative tourism, that you don't just visit the destination for fun, but you also visit it and leave it a better place because you've been there and you've done your share in terms of taking care of the earth and
That's
the
nice.
environment.
For the NCCA naman po, we, like every month, we have a different celebrations. Like April, we have the Philippine Food Month or the Kalutong Pilipino. So part of every monthly activities or events we do is that we dedicate an online short film amongst the youth, no, a competition using just their cell phones, no, with giving stories out of the theme that we promote for the month, and then we give incentives to them. In that way, they also have enriched their creativity and understanding of what are we celebrating every month. On May, we are celebrating the National Heritage Month. So we dedicate each activity or event in dedicated for the youth to come up with short films about the celebration. And we give incentives.
Well, Conrad, I think our travel and destination gurus have given us excellent guidance on where the tourism industry is going and where we tourists where we can go from here onwards. How about you? What are your thoughts on the matter, on the things that they've said?
Well, I find it very enlightening and encouraging, considering the fact that we all know that the tourism industry was one of the biggest or badly hit sectors during the pandemic, and it's now time for the sector to rise and for people to travel and get back at the pandemic, as you said it earlier, revenge time for tourism. And I wish this forum could go on for another hour, but we do have very busy schedules. But this is a we had a very fruitful discussion this morning, and a very encouraging one also. So the 40th.
Yeah, but before we all travel back to our on-site or remote offices or our next destinations, would you like to give some parting words or summary insights for our potential tourists locally and internationally? Oka, would you like to start?
Yes. In behalf of the National Commission for Culture and Arts, no, we encourage travel because our main interest here, to be honest, we get a certain portion of the travel tax, the NEFCA, the National Endowment Fund for Culture and Arts. So I would like to encourage you to just rediscover the Philippines, its cultural and arts, the heritage of the Philippines, not only the foreign, but also the local tourists, to go on travel and rediscover again our faith, our interests, and everything. Just to be mindful, as Attorney Alione said, we are still on the pandemic, and then our protocols are still in place. Just be mindful and careful and be responsible travelers so that we could really enjoy our vacation or our travel for that matter. Thank you very much.
How about you, Jojo?
Well, before anything else, again, I'd like to thank the Manila Times for inviting me and all of us panelists to this forum. It's been a very good and lively conversation, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And for us, for our travelers domestically and internationally, take time to explore the world this time. You've been given 2 years to collect your thoughts and to build up and whet up your appetite to travel. When you do travel now, explore the world, know your surroundings, but at the same time, what they said nga, no, just take pictures for where you go and, leave nothing behind, but just enjoy. and just continue to follow our health and safety protocols, and everything should be well. So let's go out and discover the world again. It's been too long.
And you, Tonette?
Thank you very much, Dafford and Conrad, for this wonderful opportunity to converse with you on a topic that we are all keen in terms of really looking ahead for, what the tourism industry holds for us in the immediate and near future. And as we close, I would like to reiterate that gratitude to all of you and to those who have joined us in the panel and my co-panelists here for the very lively discussion. And also, I hope you will share my gratitude to the divine, no. Sa tingin ko hindi tayo pinabayaan ng Panginoon. It was a test of fortitude, but sabi nga kapit lang, kumapit lang tayo, and I think we need to constantly thank God for leading us through out of the 2 years. We've lost some, and we continue to grieve for them, but today, as we look forward to the full reopening of our borders and praying, I join Oliver in praying na matapos na nga itong si COVID. Then I hope we continue to also call on God for protection, for guidance, and for fortitude. And as we look forward, I shared the glimmer with you that we've had a wonderful, awesome success hosting the Global Summit. And people were raving about our hospitality, the warmth of our people, how amazing our food is. And in the end, they were all really saying it's really about the people. We have 7,641 islands to be proud of. You should list all of those islands in your notebook and visit, them throughout your lifetime. My sister, who is based in Toronto as a welfare officer, we were messaging the other night, and she said, "Man, when I go home next year, I need to complete, because there are 81 provinces. I have only visited 42. So she's halfway through the provinces. So I think that's a good way to really kickstart the economy and help those who have lost jobs. And our artisan community, they're so looking forward to weave again,
Yes.
to do
create.
crafts again, for us to create again and to recreate, and for us to appreciate that at the end of the day. We don't travel for the sake of traveling. We travel to touch lives, to enrich our own persons. And I think by that measure, it is a great way to reconnect to the divine. Thank you very much, and God bless.
Well said, everyone. We appreciate your insightful words, and we hope to have you again on the Manila Times Online Business Forum. So thank you, Okag, thank you, Georgia, and thank you, Tonette. And also thank you to Berna Romulo Puyat.
I'll tell Sec.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Keep safe.
What comes to your mind when you think of peace? I think of a quiet paradise, and I open my eyes, because it's right here. San Vicente. Despite everything thrown its way, it's back on its feet again. All the places to explore, and all the best emotions to feel. Experience this paradise with Sunlight Air.
My life in Italy is always in a rush. The days are hectic, but I have always dreamt of a different life. Where each sunrise greets me with the warmth of paradise. Where turquoise waters and limestone cliffs are my backyard. Where fish don't swim in glass cases. I dreamt of living in a house that mixes comfort with a deep concern for the environment, of sharing my home with others, and developing warm-hearted communities. My dreams, they came true in the Philippines. Ten years ago, when my younger sister died, I realized that life is too short. So I left my life in Italy as an economist and sold my house, my car, and all my businesses. I boarded my boat and decided to sail around the world, visiting different countries every couple of months. But things changed when I arrived in the Philippines. In 2013, I needed to apply in advance for an Indonesian visa. The nearest consulate on my route was in Davao, but what was supposed to be just a quick stopover turned into love at first sight. I knew I would keep coming back. I explored other Philippine islands and eventually found my new home in Coron. The island has everything I wanted for my dream retirement. Warm weather, breathtaking natural formations, diverse marine life, safe and secure environment, and gentle, welcoming people. Thanks to the special resident retirees visa, I've been living in Coron for the past 4 years. It's a lifetime visa, which means I don't need to renew it. It also allows me to return to the Philippines anytime I want. No hassles, no frills. And although it wasn't in my plans, this visa also allows me to work here in Coron. We originally built this houseboat so we can have a place to stay during the rainy season. But friends and other tourists liked the idea. We decided to open it up to guests and make it a business. The houseboats are totally eco-friendly. They run on clean energy. The wastewater is kept in holding tanks. We don't discharge any waste into the sea. Twice a day, the waste is transferred to a 6-stage concrete septic tank in another island, where it's treated properly. This way, the lagoon stays pristine. Because of these eco-friendly steps, I was able to get permission to set up the houseboats in the Tagmanua's ancestral waters. I also partnered with the Tribe Association to provide livelihood and training to their young members.
Good morning, Kuya Paulo!
Salamat po, Kuya Jeffrey.
Living in the Philippines is a dream. Here, I found a home. Here, I found a family. I've been to 120 countries. But the Philippines is the only one that made me want to stay.
Sign up for a year and pay less than 71 pesos per month. Visit tmt.ph/digital to get your free 30 days of the Manila Times Digital Edition.